It's been a week since America's 19% tariffs on Philippine exports took effect, along with zero import tariffs on select U.S. products. As America's tariffs shift the cost structure for Philippine businesses, experts who have come on this program underscore the need to diversify.
I think we have lost competitive edge pertaining to our agricultural products, and so the thing to do there is really to look for other markets for that.
We just have to look for other markets. Okay, since US only about 16%, majority is semiconductor electronics and garments, and also some fruits like a banana and pineapple. No? But they occupy only 16%. We still have 84% of the other export market. Let's just gear up and look for other markets, European markets, or even the Chinese market. Why not?
Our next guest says small economies like the Philippines fare best in trade wars by strengthening institutional frameworks and collaborating through regional and global alliances. With us now is Federico Poch Macaranas, Education Committee Chair of the Management Association of the Philippines. Good to see you again, Poch. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, so I'm thinking about the game theory models we talked about a couple of months ago, suggesting that countries acting alone is in a zero-sum mentality game and often at a disadvantage. Looking back, and after all that's been said and done, did we even get a chance to work with our ASEAN partners to negotiate as a regional trading bloc?
Yes, indeed, the need to work with our ASEAN partners is fundamental to a strategy that we must take in this fast-moving war of unilateral tariff policies. As the newspapers have indicated, the Philippines may have lost in some of the deals bilaterally because we did not consider what may be offered to the other ASEAN countries. For example, the fact that zero tariffs on incoming goods from the United States will hit the Philippines is quite problematic. And even the request of the U.S. to relocate our call centers there is going to be devastating to the economy. But if we were to deal with our ASEAN partners, maybe there can be arrangements where we can negotiate for a region-wide approach rather than just a plainly country-by-country style of negotiation. So I hope that the collaboration
I mean, now that 19%
deepens.
tariffs are in place, a tariff level that we now share with ASEAN neighbors like Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Cambodia, how much of a leeway do we have in suggesting how best we can leverage our strengths with the ASEAN regional bloc?
An example of this would be the classic coconut oil situation, where in the past, tropical fats and oils were cornered by, for example, the developed countries in protecting their own soybean and other kinds of fats and oils. The fact that the Philippines pursued this case, even in the GATT, the predecessor to the WTO, indicates that persistently, if we work with the other countries like Malaysia and other tropical fats and oils producers in ASEAN, we can demand a greater leverage.
Okay, find us that leverage then. I mean, how else can we find that leverage? In fact, the PIDS recent note said that the ASEAN members did miss an opportunity to prevent this united front before entering the talks with the U.S.
The leverage will be on a product-by-product basis because this has to be detailed in the data that we must collect for our negotiation. Unfortunately, I don't think the data have been completely collected yet, and this is the first homework that the President expects of our negotiators as they talk on specific products.
Okay, so not all too late because Trump isn't done yet with the chip sector. He's announced last week plans to impose 100% tariffs on computer chips not made in the U.S. unless the companies make a commitment to build in the U.S. So what can we as an ASEAN member do to get more bargaining power as a regional bloc that could be arranged at all in such short time?
Dealing with the individual ASEAN countries, the U.S. is able to put its foot without listening to the other countries. For example, when China uses Vietnam to resell products from its country to the US, of course, that's part of the strategy that China would want. But within the GATT and WTO rules, there must be some way of orderly market arrangements that will prevent this. In the spirit of the collaboration, we must look at what's happening to the other groups. For example, in the EU, it's very clear that they have partnered with Canada and Japan on the situation of the excess uh, trade balances in favor of them through the treasury bills and bonds sale that can be proactively coordinated. This is the problem with the thinking that trade surpluses have to be answered with import and exports only of goods and services. But in the end, the excess funds that the countries like Japan, EU, and China have on the trade will be used for treasury bills and bonds. And that's where they were hit in the United States. So this is a long-term game plan, I think, of other countries. Rather than focus on trade alone, let's work on these excess funds in the financial markets.
I'm hearing that there's a lot of dependencies there. You've mentioned GATT, WTO, and you've also made a mention of regionalization. So the Philippines hosts the ASEAN Summit next year. What do you think should the Philippines advocate for then, considering that it is host for next year's ASEAN Summit?
Closer coordination so that the multilateral trading system would be restored in its original intent after World War II. The US was a champion of that kind of arrangement, but through the years, when the economy of the US declined and the other countries rose, like China, of course, the US fear of losing its grip on the world economy was the main factor why US thinks that it should not be part of a multilateral arrangement. But this is the problem. The other smaller countries will group not for you, but against you, as they are now doing in the BRICS, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa grouping has now increased to more than a dozen countries. And soon the trade, especially with the Middle East on oil, will be problematic. And now that Mr. Trump has gone to the Middle East to ask not only for oil, but also for investments in other aspects that will deal with rare earth metals, I think this is indication that groupings are more effective than individual countries in dealing with the United States. So the ASEAN must ask for a return to the multilateral trading system.
A lot to learn from, and it's not all too late then. And that is a message that we take away from you. Thank you so much, Poch Macaranas of the MAP.